Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, once more by Tate for a very special review. This is our spoiler review, spoiler discussion on, we say, Succession Season 4. It's the only Succession video on the channel, which I guess doubles up as a Succession review as a whole. But before we get into things like that, Tate, how are we doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a weird state. This was such a fantastic TV show, and it's always sad when a TV show ends. I know we're getting two kind of long-standing TV shows ending this week. So I'm in a bit of a weird kind of like mid state at the moment. Like I loved this show. It's really, really good. It's some of the best TV we've had in years. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, it's over. We won't get any more kind of vibes at the moment.
Yeah, I've been doing the same thing. Last night, I almost stayed up. I was gonna stay up to watch it. I didn't in the end, but it was one of them where I've come in. I say fairly late, just as season 3 ended. We'll get into that shortly, but this has sort of come back with a bang. Straight after The Last of Us, by the way. I'm pretty sure HBO has been like, and they've got another show starting.
Killing it.
Yeah, except The Idol, which apparently is going to be terrible. But it's sort of over, and it's that now. Like this, it wasn't like a Game of Thrones, right? That was a commitment. I joined in from season 2, watching it weekly. But just the Succession Sunday, the memes, everything that pops up on Instagram, the quote accounts, the reaction accounts. It was kind of really sad that it was suddenly it's over like that. And I think what makes it not worse, it ends as a pretty perfect TV series, which I just don't think we've had the luxury of having for a show for a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I should have pre-grieved for this one, but of course I didn't in the end. It's one of those weird shows that I have no idea how it came about. I have no idea who came up with the original concept for it and stuff like that, and how that came into play. But the fact that it is, I would describe it as kind of a drama with kind of an underlying tone of a black comedy. It's so well put together, and it's so well done. And it's one of those shows where you get so invested into all of the characters and all of the intrigue and all the backstabbing and everything like that. And now it's over, and it's like, oh. But like you said, this is going to go down as one of those series that, it's going to be talked about for a long time after it's finished. You have shows that come and go. But
yeah,
this felt like event television. You were tuning in every single week kind of to, watch this family tear each other apart, basically. And I don't know if it's down to the filmmaking style, the cinematography, and the way they kind of put it together, or whether it's just down to the characters, the script, everything like that. It's just been a fantastic season to finish off the show, and a fantastic series in general.
No, I am with you on that. And I guess as well, heading into those, we do want to hear from people. So we know the finale dropped last night, 2 a.m. over here. It was on Sky. I know the BFI had a big event for it. Obviously, that's the evening time America. If you are watching, do comment your thoughts on Succession. As we said, this is a spoiler video. We're going to do spoilers for the finale in all 4 seasons. So if you haven't watched it, honestly, you might want to step away. If you have watched it, comment whatever you want to comment about the series, because it is one that everyone has different reading. There were so many theories heading into the finale. Not theories for the sake of theories, but genuine. This could happen. And that's what made it exciting. And for me, at least, I thought the ending was not different to what I thought. But I don't think too many people have predicted who is the CEO of Waystar, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But as always, if you want to find out about what other videos you've got coming up, you do get us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, @Cinema_Savvy, Facebook.com/CinemaSavvy, link to Redbubble in that description below. Ted, I'm going to put you on the spot with a little quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
Before we get your thoughts on the first 3 seasons, favorite Succession character?
It's a tough call. I quite like Greg, just because of the comedic element. He is he's the outsider looking in throughout most of the series. So he's kind of our first contact to the Roy family. He's the one who's kind of trying to inch his way in and try and get kind of, perspective and stuff like that. And he gets thrown around a lot throughout the entire series in his own way. But I feel like he has some of the best moments in the show from a kind of comedy perspective. But if I was going for kind of one of the bigger players in the show, not to say that Greg isn't a big player, it would be a tough split between Tom and Roman. Like, I think both of those characters are so fantastically well put together, and just all of their interactions with any character are just so perfect. Yeah, they're just brilliant characters. I mean, I love all of them, but yeah.
No, I'm with you. I think for mine, I have to go with Conor Roy.
You're a
I
con
don't
head.
know. Yeah, I am a con head, and it was one of these weird things. Like, as the show just kept going, as the years went by, I was like, I really like this older absent brother. That he's sort of got nothing to do with them, but he lives in his own world. And in the whole presidency joke, taking it as far to the election night as they did is just unbelievable. And I guess in terms of character arcs, his is not open ended, but there's certain things in this world that aren't resolved, such as a presidency campaign and where his future lies in the stuff with Willer. And I just think he's not a good person. And this is the thing with the show. There are no good people in Succession. And I've always found it fascinating when I've seen people not attach themselves to characters, but one of the whole concepts, this is like the whole show is not comments on capitalism, not politics of that sense, but the functioning of the show is that these are all terrible people and they're vying to be a successor, for this head of this media mogul. And I just love that Connor's just never there. Like he is never going to be part of it. They didn't want to be part of that. You've got the story with this mum as well about what happened to her. Even going up to his wedding, I've just absolutely loved him. And, for his speech, for his failed presidency, to be like, I'm all right, I'm a billionaire.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to imagine. I mean, we've got a prime minister that could say that actually, but the logic of this guy that's lost and he's so oblivious to how to do it that he's like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm a billionaire. Like, of course the voters would want to hear that. And I just love him as the show's gone on. I think they've used Alan Rook the right amount. You never got too much of him, but you didn't ever get too little. And I think he just brought something to it.
It's just that kind of that bland kind of, not even bland background humor, but he is that kind of character who always says almost the wrong thing at the right time. Like, he's always coming in with a comment and it's like, oh, you just want to go, oh no, of course not. But I mean, this is a spoiler video, so we can go straight into it. By the end of the series, he's probably the only one who's come out properly on top out of all of the Roy family. Like, he's the only one who is completely happy in himself. Kind of has
house.
He's got the house. He's got a wife. He got all the good possessions, and even down to little details. He actually had some quality time with his dad before he died, and he had a nice relationship with him, whereas none of the other siblings did. Like,
he had a nice relationship.
Well, I'd say
he had a better
relationship, but the fact that he could sit down with his dad and have a drink and have a laugh and take the mick out of each other, he had some quality time with him towards the end, whereas none of the others did. Like, that's kind of his takeaway from it, and he doesn't have to walk away from the business. He was never really part of it, but he got everything that he wanted by the end of the series. Like, so there's no, he's the only one who, out of the Roys, who actually kind of got out on good terms.
Yeah, no, that's very fair with him. And he could have been the president, but fortunately, it wasn't to be.
Can we get a spin-off? If we're going to get a spin-off show, can we get that?
It was the farewell speech when he's sort of like con heads, like they're coming or something. It was just, it's perfect. But yeah, everything about him across those first 3 seasons. But if kind of sticking with this, the way we're going to play this, we'll do our thoughts on the first 3 seasons. Then we're going to, rather than do episode by episode or anything like that, we're going to talk about character arcs. We're going to take the characters, go through their story arc, getting from the start of the series to the end of the series, where they fit overall. And that's going to kind of tie up everything from the series before we sort of do like favorite moments and round out. But the first 3 seasons, so Charlie, who is on the channel a fair amount, for years she'd been hyping Succession, and it was only until me and you spoke about before we went live, till BFI Film Festival in 2021 when Succession had a premiere for season 3. I hadn't known of it, but it was a show a few people told me to watch. And I hadn't followed much. I didn't know much about the casts, which was quite remarkable, which is credit, I think, because all these actors are going to probably absolutely have incredible careers.
I'll put it this way. I could see every single actor in Succession ending up in a Knives Out film. That's how I see them in the future.
I think they'll all not doing well sounds terrible. I hate stuff like
Yeah.
that, but I think the show's not gone on too long now. It's wrapped. I think a lot of them will have a lot of projects they can pick from. They probably don't have the luxury of doing in the past. And I think the showrunners, the writers have looked out for them. I mean, the whole Sarah Snook Shiv pregnant storyline, because she's pregnant in real life, they put it into the script as well, which I think benefited, at least that they were looking at the real life side of things. When you hear about, some actors where they have got pregnant and it's like, no, your character's not though, so you'll be normal.
Yeah.
So there's things like that. But the first 3 seasons, I binged it as soon as season 3 finished. So around Christmas time, I always end up binging a show. And it was the week after Christmas before, work gets normal again. And I didn't intend to, but I saw 3 seasons in 7 days. I just couldn't stop watching it. It was so good, and I was so invested. I absolutely loved it, and it just carried on and on and on. Obviously, the soundtrack, the theme sticks in your head on loop, and it still is. But I absolutely love those first 3 seasons, and they all sort of blur into one for me. So I can't pinpoint a favorite episode or season because it literally just feels like that's what I did for a few days, and it's all there. But I very much enjoyed it, and I was quite, I guess I could say, heading into season 4, I was more excited when they announced it would be the final season. Originally I wasn't going to watch it week to week, but the moment they said final season and people started tweeting, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to avoid spoilers. So credit to anyone that's tried to wait till now to binge the 10 together.
Yeah. So I actually came on later than that. I came on quite late. I knew about the show. I'd heard about it from London Film Festival, and I'd heard about it from, just word of mouth. People saying, oh my God, have you seen Succession? And that was just kind of the conversation that people would have. It'd be like, oh, you must watch Succession. Oh my God, you're missing out if you haven't seen Succession. Best show on TV was what everyone was kind of pitching it to me as. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll get around to it at some point. And then this last summer, I was in New York, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to start watching it because I know it's set in New York. I'm going to start watching it before I go out to New York, and I'll kind of watch a few episodes whilst out there and stuff like that. And I got hooked. I'm pretty sure by the time I kind of got back from New York, I think I had 1 or 2 episodes left to go. But it was just such a fun series to get on board with, such an intense series to get on board with as well. So many twists and turns, like I said, backstabbing, a variety of different things that are thrown onto the table, which I never thought I would find, I would like a show like this. On paper, a corporate show about a dynasty family fighting over the scraps, that isn't my kind of TV. And yet this is so well put together. It's just so entertaining watching them fight over the scraps and fighting with their dad and, the variety of different things, to the point where, even at the end, like Logan Roy being one of the, if not the main kind of character for the series, what everyone is fighting for, his throne, his crown. Towards the end, his name isn't even really mentioned in the final episode, apart from the video scene. Like, the show is able to adapt and change in various different ways, and it's done it throughout the entire series, where characters come, characters go, deals get made, deals get broken. You can have a character like Mattson come in with like 2 episodes to go on series 3 and suddenly be like a massive player in the final series. That's what this show's all about. It's about kind of keeping you on your toes, keeping you on the edge of your seats. And it did it with kind of sharp-witted humor, kind of business terms thrown at you, business acquisitions thrown at you, backstabbing, murder, killing each other, all the different phrases and stuff like that. It all comes together. And yeah, those 3 series, before this one, set everything up in motion, set all the puzzle pieces into place, even to the point where I was thinking at the end of series 3, after watching it, I was like, how much further can they go with this? It can't be too much. It can't be, maybe they'll go 5 seasons, maybe they'll go, I doubt they go 4. Because not many series go 4 seasons. They don't have the balls to say, no, this is the natural progression, this is the natural end, and end it with, 39 episodes worth of content.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, even that 4 season thing, I'm trying to think, not a fair comparison, but like Star Wars Rebels, right? That was 4 seasons. I remember them announcing after season 3, probably the most popular season, the best season, it was this humongous deal, like, oh, it's only going to be 4 seasons, like it's ending, it's done. And you don't get that these days. Even, I guess British stuff happens a bit more, especially when it's traditional, like BBC 6-episode series, especially comedies would be 2 seasons usually back in the day. But you don't get it certainly of American shows and HBO ones as well. You know, you can easily see it being 5-6 seasons, and it was very brave of them to make it a 4-season series, and that I think changed all the perspectives for this series. And kind of getting into it now, we go for the main acts. We'll start with Logan Roy, because it feels weird now talking about Logan Roy being in the series when, you know, he's all over the marketing, he's at the front, he's still alive as the season starts. And we kind of knew, you know, it's called Succession, right? He's going to die at some point. But episode 3, which I know he's on the trailers, so I know that's the episode he died in. But if we talk about him first with his character, because we knew he had to go.
Yeah.
Episode 3 was during Star Wars Celebration, and I remember everyone was having drinks, and it got to about 2 a.m, and people were tweeting Succession, and that's when I sort of disappeared and went to bed because everyone was saying like, "Oh my god, what's happening?" Blah blah blah. But kicking off with Logan Roy, now kind of what you said earlier, you know, the concept of the series about this tycoon family. I know that it's, for all intents and purposes, legally not the Murdochs, but it clearly is the Murdochs.
Yeah.
Which I still find amazing that they've been able to. I think no one's ever able to say the name Murdoch as in press interviews, script, anything.
No.
And there's even things like, so the children did try and take over once. Obviously, he's still alive. They didn't succeed. But there's loads of these little comparisons that go there, and then all the politics that come around the side of it. It's really interesting, and people don't know much about the Murdochs. They're exactly great people, but yeah, Logan Roy. I don't much about him in the season, except episode 3, his death episode, because he has a presence. He has a presence after his death for the entire thing, even the funeral last week, where just the shot of the coffin. You just see that there's like, it reminds me of is it like Batman Begins, where it's a really random comparison, but you know when he's in the pub and Falcone's sort of there, like you know, I've got power and money just can't buy power. And that's every time Brian Cox is on screen in all 4 seasons, he has a presence. And it's felt with the other actors, how they act around him, their performances, how they write him, and how Brian Cox approaches it, how he even is away from this, if anyone's seen his interviews. Not saying he's him for real, but there's a load of potential internal politics of the whole method acting versus not method acting. Brian Cox is not a fan of it. Very much not a fan of it, and there's a, you know, one of the lead actors clearly is one, so that always created interesting perspectives to the press tour. But the death episode, not showing him, getting the back of his head about 30 minutes in.
Yeah,
one of the best. I mean, I think it's the best episode of the 4 seasons. But getting that episode so early in the season changed everything. Because then it came about, how do you now do a storyline about them trying to not succeed the father, but how do we get from point A, which is now, to point B, which is a finale? And they absolutely nailed it. But just kicking off of them first, it's going to go down as one of the all-time great TV performances. Even though he's not there throughout the end, anyone thinks of Succession, they will think of Logan Roy first and foremost. I fundamentally believe that.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. He was the character that everything revolved around. They were after his money. They were after his crown. It is who will succeed him and how long can he hold on to the business. And even coming into this series, he's a bit bitter and twisted because his family, you know, he's basically backstabbed his family and his family are fighting back. And from the start of the series, he calls them out. He says, "You are not serious people." Like, he is absolutely gunning for them. At that point, he doesn't care about family anymore. He is there for his sole purpose and sole business alone. And yet, we throw in that whole dying in episode 3 spanner in the works. And suddenly the series almost gets flipped onto its head. It's like, oh, we are in the final season. We will now find out who's actually going to take over the reins. And that's all started because of the presence that Brian Cox had on screen and kind of the performances he gave off. It's a massive power vacuum that he's leaving, but that had to be built up over those series. You couldn't have the series of Succession where he dies in the opening episode, because I know he has a heart attack in the opening episode. If he dies in the opening episode and then the final 3 series is just people squabbling over, the rest of it, we don't have any presence. We don't have any kind of reason to believe, Was he really that big of a business mogul in the first place? You have the previous series to show how ruthless he is and how kind of bitter and cold he is. And we even learn more about him through his death. Like, the eulogies at the funeral, all the characters talking about him, after he's died, what he's left behind, his wives and his girlfriends that he's left behind as well, the stories they have to tell, everything down to kind of the future of the business, what he'd laid out in front of himself, what he had planned for the future, trying to execute that or trying to actually execute it. So, his presence in the series is phenomenal, and his character is the character to center the series around. And Brian Cox, it's a shame that we only got 3 episodes of him in this series, but realistically, throughout what we've got from the previous 3 series, we got enough. We got more than enough. We got more than, anything we could have ever dreamed of, because his character was just so well done.
I mean, he was going to die after the first 3 episodes of season 1. Like, if no one knows he's behind the scenes, there's so much you can read about. I think Roman's got a wedding ring in the very first episode on the pilot as well. There's a lot of things from the earliest episodes which they changed, and I don't know the creative process, whether it worked better than they thought and they were going to think, okay, we'll stretch this out, whether it was performances, whether the stories changed. It's really fascinating, the creative approach to a lot of this, and it all starts with Brian Cox. And I just can't picture
the way he delivers. Fuck off, It's just, he has some of the best lines in the series as well. Absolutely, some of the best one-liners.
Even this series, when he's like, "I'm bored, someone try and roast me," and the moment anyone says anything, he just destroys them back, and it's just so much funnier. And when we talk later about some of our favorite scenes of the whole show, I guess we can say, I know exactly what one I always go to. But moving from Logan, let's talk about his number 1 boy, Kendall, played by Jeremy Strong. One of my not necessarily favorite characters on TV ever. I think one of the most interesting characters I've ever seen written on TV. I don't quite have the words to describe him. And full credit to Jeremy Strong for his performance over these years. Taking this, you go back to season 1, right? And there's a really good analogy. When they had the will, the unsigned will, and the line on Kendall sort of goes up and through. So basically, but that's basically Kendall Roy from season 1 through to season 4, his state of mind. And I don't know if there's ever been a character more interesting. This is why I really want to rewatch the series now. The whole, I want to rewatch from season 1 through to the end of season 4, because it's going to be completely different knowing the ending now. And I reckon that it teased a lot of stuff over the years. But Kendall reminds me of who was it? Someone described Darth Maul once. Stick with me. It might have been Freddie Prinze Jr. had this amazing story. It's like one of those old Greek god things, and it's basically whichever Greek god was always rolling the stone up the hill and could never reach it up.
Tantalus.
Yeah, that is Kendall Roy. There, every single time something's going to work, that boulder's going to come straight back down, and it is his fault a lot of the time. Some of the times it's not. And looking at his arc, it's so hard not to think about it today, where season 4, they didn't just build him up. They made him the boss. They made him his father's son.
Yeah.
And they waited until the last 15 minutes.
They anointed him.
Yeah. And until that moment of Shiv in the boardroom, that's when you just see his character. And it's going back to that stone, right? He was at the highest point he ever got to, and that boulder crushed him. And Shiv saying, I just don't want it to be you. We'll get to her. With that, some people are reacting very weirdly to that. But the fact that the series ends with him, it's the final shot again of the season. Him looking over the horizon, incredible score, Nicholas Patel. It could have been so perfect. And what he's lost his family. He's lost his daughters. He's lost his wife. He's lost his father. He's probably lost his siblings from today at this point as well.
He's
got nothing. He's lost his company, his birthright, as he called it. Well, this is the one thing I do say about the show. They're all billionaires still.
Yeah.
But it's the come down from him. And certainly there's been moments where until halfway into today's episode, I didn't actually believe he'd do it. Until today, I thought, he's actually going to do it. He is going to. I thought when they were swimming in that water, I was like, shit, there's not going to be a stupid, like they get lost at sea or something instead. Because you know how great shows can go. And it was going too well.
It's really funny you said that, because I was watching it with my dad, and my dad said, "Where have they gone to?" And I was like, "Oh, Caribbean or somewhere tropical." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "I think a storm's going to come, and they're just going to be stuck there. They won't be there for the board meeting. They can't cast their votes."
I thought something like that as well. Yeah. I felt really tense, and then they're inside, and it's fine, and nothing happened. I was like, "Oh, like okay, nothing here." And he's such a fascinating character. I just love how he's been played. I love how they write him. And I just think the chemistry he has with everyone, even when it's like, here's a board member, and you can see his play, and you can see like he is the business, that he is the successor to me. It should have always been him, but that's the purpose of the show. It could not going to be. Yeah, it could, should, would, however people want to put it, but it's not. And the come down as well. The scene with Shiv. I know Roman insulted his kids, but strangling Roman in the glass doors for everyone to watch, not being there, it's the most. It's a point of no return for him.
It's
today.
I'm the eldest son comment. It's like, no,
yeah,
Connor's still there. Like,
I mean, what are your thoughts on? Because I feel this is a character people will write about for years.
He is going to be a very studied character in general. People already are studying him as character work and stuff like that. Really phenomenal. Once again, brilliantly played. Really, really well played. And his time throughout the show, he's always been kind of the black sheep of the family, kind of like dipping in and out of being in kind of good working order with Logan and completely directly against him, like direct competition. And he keeps on dipping in and out and dipping in and out. And it's really interesting that his final shot mirrors the shot of kind of Logan in the trailer, with his back facing, the screen and everything like that. One thing I want to point to, just because I'm staring at the shot right now on IMDb, there's a lot of themes going on. I think people have pointed out online with Ken and water. We have, when Ken's happy in this episode, in the final episode, he's swimming in the water. At the very end, he's staring out at the water. He was floating, face down in the water when he was down and out. Yeah. He was floating face up in the water when he was doing good. He is, the reason why someone died drowning in water. And now he's finally free and he's staring at the water, but there's a barrier in the way. It's like he is on the outside now. He doesn't have to sink or swim anymore. He just has to, sit at the side of the pool. Like, that's his role now.
It does fascinate me what they're able to do with him, and I think kind of what they bring to that with him, like the relationship with the siblings as well. I mean, we'll get into Roman next. He's one of them where the three of them, the reason they work is because they are not the same. They've never been the same, and I think that's so much more important for where the show's trying to go. If that makes sense. That if you had the three same people vying for the same exact thing, it wouldn't be interesting. And that's kind of not necessarily the issue with shows like Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones was always, yes, we want to be king, but why do you want to be king? Is it a birthright? Is it because I want to conquer? Whereas Succession never felt like that. These are like almost
way more complicated.
Yeah, and the three of them never got the chance to actually, the playing around, the drink today. You can tell they never had a childhood, and I think that's what's quite worrying for them, is that they're almost been brainwashed to have this perspective of this is what you're going to do with our lives. And I do find it fascinating that moving into Roman, he's had, I don't know if he's a victim of physical abuse. I need to see the early seasons again, but this series with him, teeing up he's still talking to his dad.
Yeah.
And I do think Logan was never, ever serious about him taking over. I do think that was always a political play.
Yeah.
I never thought it'd be anything else other than that. But Roman, because he's so easy manipulated, he lives in fear of his father. When his dad goes and it's suddenly, you're sort of co-running the company of your brother, it's the power going to his head and what they've done with him. And I think, to me, his story arc finished more so last week than this week. The building up of Roman across his entire season, thinking he'll never be his dad, but he's in a position where could he deliver? Because we know he can do the hard decisions, but his business mind isn't on.
Yeah.
But the moment at the funeral where he has the breakdown, by the way, Kieran Culkin's won the Emmy already for the season.
Yeah,
it has to be
100%.
said. That moment is again where the writing comes in. Kendall's broken down today, the last 10 minutes of the season. Roman was in a 2-minute speech last week. They built up that funeral. They built up another week saying, you know what, drop me to the talk. I'll do the talk. I'm good to do the talk. And seeing him crumbling last week in front of everybody who's been on the show for the public humiliation. He's the one person that couldn't deal with the public humiliation. He would need his public persona to be in the up. The come down for him is amazing. And even today, him fighting with himself there, he wanted me to do it. We know it wasn't serious, but he was just, this innocent kid that was manipulated. And it's kind of not perfect that it was played by a Culkin, but more so that mindset, if that makes sense, that it was not such an obvious looking character, that he wasn't a spitting image of Kendall. He was smaller, shorter, again, probably abused a little bit more, likes weird physical pain, got weird fetishes. I've loved what they've done with Roman. And even, his finale today, it's him smiling, having the drink, knowing he's free from the burden of Waystar. And I think he would never admit it, but it was never for him.
It's really interesting because there are certain characters in certain shows where you'd go, you could not recast that person. I feel like as good of a job that Jeremy Strong did, as Ken, I think you could find someone who could play that role well, shall we say. And same, dare I say, with Logan. I know that he's deceased now, but you could easily see Christopher Plummer playing that role. You could have easily seen before, all of the allegations, everything like Kevin Spacey possibly going into that role. There are certain actors. I know. That was
a bit young. That's what I was thinking more so than anything else.
Yeah, but you can see actors dipping into that role. You could see actors kind of playing those different characters. I can't see anyone playing Roman. Roman is his own animal, his own beast. The quick wit that comes with the character, the torture and abuse that he's suffered from throughout his entire kind of life in the show, kind of stretched out with moments of pure clarity, like the clarity in this episode, the last episode today, where we find him at the very end of the series, where he says, "We're bullshit. We were never meant to succeed, Dad. It was never our job to do that." It's so clear to him at that point that no one from the family should have taken over. It's not our job. We would never set ourselves up for it. He never wanted us to do it. He just wanted us to, side with him.
Be there, basically.
Yeah,
that's what it was. Whoever, and that's what's interesting. When you go back to Logan across these other seasons, these other series, because of his upbringing, and the one thing I sort of can't shake with it, but there's I think it might be season 2 when he gets out of a pool, you can see the scars on his back. Never bring it back up. It's not this a plot hole or anything, but it's implied that he had a tough upbringing. And even last week at the eulogy with his brother, giving the story about the sister that had died, the polio, it was really interesting hearing these sorts of pieces together, because Logan is very much came from nothing to get everything. And ultimately, and I think this is why he says it to them at the start of this series, if it's a regret, we'll never know, but telling the kids, you're not serious people, they've been brought up as billionaires. One of them thinking he's going to inherit an empire when he's 7, which is probably the plan still. And he probably would have inherited it with no issue had there not been the aggro from the first season. But it's one of those where, because they've never had it tough, they've never really had to do the real world. A lot of the comedy from this show is at how terrible the trio are outside of their comfort zone, because they've lived under that shadow, they've lived under that protection of their father, protection to the point of their careers, their lives, and everything else. Them trying to go about it, do their own thing, it was never going to work because they just don't have the experience or life ability to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to add as well, just on top of that, Roman as a character, I think there's certain characters in TV. I kind of relate to him as the Bender of the series, from Futurama. He is quick-witted, doesn't care a lot of the time, and every now and then you peek through the shell and you can see that he's just kind of like a scared little, boy in this kind of wild situation that he doesn't even know how he ended up there. And I think from where he starts this series to where he ends this series, at the start of this series, he's broken. He had full faith in his dad. He'd always looked up to him, even though he'd been abused by him. And then suddenly by the end of the series, you know, he's completely washed of him. He's happy to move on with his life. You know, he has the drink, which is Jerry's drink as well. So he can, you know, reminisce on that. And he's very happy to have, you know, his paycheck and have his hands clean from the company. He can go back to being a playboy like he was in the earlier series and just, you know, wash his hands of the company and responsibility.
Yeah, no, I absolutely see that. And kind of moving from Raymond, should we talk Shiv? Siobhan?
Let's talk Shiv. Another complex character.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to the first season, when Shiv begins, she's not in the Waystar limelight. It's got the politics career going. You've got Tom there, of course, the marriage. Shiv's really ultimately today, she decided the outcome of this whole series today. And it was ingenious how they set up to the board vote up, how they had people picking their sides, almost the war zone moment when you've got each, you know, Tom running back to his headquarters with Shiv to hers. She's fascinating. And I don't quite have, not again saying no the words, but I don't struggle with the character. I think like the other two, she's very complex. The thing with Shiv is that she has, how would I say it? She has the business acumen, as Lucas worked with her, right? That she can do it all. She can do the tricky talk. She can do the cuts. And I know they talk about her lack of experience within the company being an issue. The fact that she's got pregnant, which, you know, is nothing. It's nothing to do with her job. The fact that ultimately Lucas just likes her, which is why he played her along. At no point did he ever say should be the USC. It was always her.
Not even once. And I picked up on that straight away. Like as soon as he was
today he changed the topic as soon as the moment I saw that cartoon of him being her dancing puppet. I thought he wasn't going to pick her anyway, but I think that was like the cement of the final straw. But Shiv's character, I think the balcony scene with Tom is what epitomized it, where he says, you know, you are just incapable of love. And I do think that's the case. And obviously we've had multiple relationships over the seasons, but she wanted that company. And her fixation upon it, you know, understandable, being the only girl at the trio, almost being shown the door by the other two when they took over after the dad died. I don't know quite what it is, but there's something about Shiv where it was never going to work for her. And it's not like a Kendall where it's, you know, going up with the rockabouts, dropping them. This is someone that I think it was always so obvious what she wanted. Anyone could have manipulated her if she'd have thought she'd get what she wants. And that's exactly what's happened across multiple seasons and has cost her. And maybe for her own sanity, her choosing to sell it to, you know, go back to a loveless marriage where the husband she hates, who's going to have her child, is there. I like it. She's got the worst ending out of the trio.
She chose it, and it's the most depressing ending of everyone, dare I say. It's fascinating because as a character throughout the entire series, she kind of treats the world like she can own it and can run it. But everyone always treats her as one of the Roys. It's just a name. There's nothing else attached to it. And she's very good at networking and very good at connecting people, but she never kind of seals anything forward for herself. She always puts herself in very compromising situations, which lead to her losing out on the situation purely out of the fact that she did all the hard work, she did all the stuff, and then she just gets dropped at the last second. And that happened like 3-4 times in the entire series where she set herself up into a really good position only for it to all come crashing down just because she didn't get things in writing or she didn't get things sealed. And she's very happy to kind of backstab her brothers after they backstabbed her purely out of the fact of kind of spite. And out of all of the Roys, she's the one that reminds me the most of Logan. Yeah. And I don't know if that's about kind of the way that she goes about her business, the way that she kind of talks to other people, the way that she's able to negotiate or anything like that. But she always seemed, especially when in series, was it 2 or 3, where she could have taken on the company and come in, she always seemed like she took that hard line with people, had the ability to cut people, had the ability to come in and actually run the business, but was never quite there, was never quite taken seriously. It's a fascinating character. And then her choice at the end as well, just because she doesn't see her brother doing it, she's like, do you know what? I don't see it this way. And to her, it's a weird state that she ends herself in.
I read it as, if it's not me, it's none of them. That's exactly how I read it. It was the final knife that she could have done.
Yeah. I think she saw it as, I think she was kind of hoping that the vote would go heavily one way or the other. She wouldn't have to be the casting vote. But the second she realized, wow, this is the first time I have the company in my hands. What do I play here? If she voted for Ken, she would have been cut from the company. You know, she tried to step out before. She would have no influence on the company at all. She'd have nothing. But then if she chooses, you know, her hateful husband and the company that have fucked her already, at least she still has ties in there and she can stay close and she won't have any influence over it. People will still treat her as, you know, like the kind of, oh, you can do the networking, you can do the hard work, but we'll just drop you in the end. But at least she still has that kind of connection to the company. It's the only way that she could have won was by being the heaviest loser here. And it's just a really, really interesting way around it, especially because in this episode, she gets backstabbed, you know, once by, you know, the company that she ends up voting for in the end. She ends up voting for Gojo, who were absolutely willing to throw her under the bus, you know, into the river. But, you know, that final kind of shot with her, she is in Tom's palm of his hand now. She is literally like, she has chosen to be the kind of the wife to his son, you know, or daughter, you know, and will end up kind of having that connection to the Empire. But she ends up kind of like her mum, you know, loveless marriage, just kind of birthing out the heirs to the Empire.
It's really interesting with her because that choice, you know, the scene when Tom says it's him, I thought there's no return for now, that they'll still lose, but there'll be something else. For her to put that approval through, and I think that's why that the final Ken meltdown was so interesting, because had he have not run after her, she might not have actually. I don't think she could cope with the decision, but the moment he starts getting in her ear, that's when I think it sort of it starts. The decision making process goes a lot quicker, and the whole ideology with Tom this season, because not that he didn't have too much to do with it, but even the phone call on the start of the episode when they're on the plane, and she's even suggesting, can we make this work? And he's sort of suggesting back, I don't think we can. And what's fascinated me with this from the get-go was, you know, Tom was head over heels for Shiv, whether power was one thing or another.
Yeah.
But he has loved her.
He actually loved it throughout all the series up until this series right here. I guess series 3
until the balcony
as well.
Until the balcony scene.
He loved her. And his heart was broken many times by her, and she never really loved him back. She was doing it for the status. She was doing it for the, oh, I'm going to be married now kind of thing. It was, for her, it was a game. For him, it was love. And, you know, he ended up winning in the end. So...
just the final shot of them in the car, like they're not holding hands. The hand is out. There's one almost touching, but it's not.
Is the hand placed on the hand? It's like, I'm going to hold out the palm of my hand, and you are going to sit in it.
Yeah, it's almost like a, you know, at the start of the season, how they were having to play up their marriage not being broken for the media and for you know, that it's almost like that's going to reverse its head now. They've got to carry on with him as the CEO. And it does make it so much interesting that she's probably going to end up with the worst life of the lot. You know, she didn't want the kid in the first place with him. There's so many variables going, and even Madison, like I mean, we'll get into Tom in a couple of seconds, but the whole Madison dynamic as well with Shiv, that he only actually just fancied her because he wanted to be with her, telling all the weird stories, things like that. It's so fascinating. And if we do talk about Tom, because you can't really talk about Shiv without Tom, the winner of Succession.
Congratulations to our winner of Succession. If anyone would have predicted that from series 1, well done to you.
Like, I wouldn't have even predicted it from season 3.
I mean, I predicted it before the last episode, if that counts for anything. I think everyone was going, well, let's be real here. Shiv won't be the acting US CEO, and then it went down to kind of the rumors. Would they
Becomes
draft?
one or two, doesn't it? American
Was it
CEO
Greg?
means
Was it Tom? Would it be one of the old heads? Would it be someone like Jerry? Would it be someone, like Carl or anyone like that? Would they draft in Connor Roy? Would they cut him a deal? There was so many different variables in play, but realistically, Tom was the best placed candidate. And from the start of the series, he set himself up as kind of the best placed candidate, slowly working his way up the chain, getting closer to Logan, getting closer to the business, slowly taking over various different parts, doing things for Logan, being his kind of confidant towards the end of series 3, with the big revelation that, he basically sold out the siblings just so that he could take a slice of the cake. And then when it comes into this series, he is Logan's right-hand man. He is the last person to speak to Logan whilst he's still alive and conscious. He is, he's there
as he
at all
died.
times. And you know what? Someone already pointed it out. On the Series 4 Succession poster, he is the only one dressed like Logan. He is the only one dressed exactly the same as Logan, wearing the same suit, same tie. Look at that.
Interesting.
They are dressed
that's
exactly the same.
Because you know what everyone would focus on, right? I mean, you can't really see it on our thumbnail, but the plane at the top.
Yeah.
When the season started, when the poster came out, people kept suggesting are they all going to die in a plane crash or something. Obviously, the plane speculation wasn't far off given, the importance of that plane in episode 3. But that's an interesting thing. I hadn't picked that up. That's actually pretty incredible. And with Tom, as you said, it makes sense though. And I've loved him. He's been one of my favorite characters from the moment the series began. Just the lovable loser, the absolute idiot, terrible person, as they all are. But there's something about him that's, the fact he was willing to go to prison for Logan. And that, you really think about it, right? It was funny on paper. It's a funny idea. But what that really meant, what that meant for the show, for his character arc, where his projection is, it's fascinating. And where he ends up, this season, it's really been one arc for him. You've had the failed marriage and him worried he's going to get sacked. And all repercussions from season 3. That amazing, was it after Logan died, when the board and Tom's like, what are my chances of surviving the cut? They're like, well, you basically fucked all of them, including your wife.
Yeah.
And now the guy you picked has died straight away, and now you got nothing. And they've always built up. And even say this morning, I didn't believe Madsen at the start when he mentioned being CEO. I thought, and I did think for a brief moment, when Madsen mentioned he wanted to, be with Shiv, I thought, is Tom going to snap? Because there's a very brief moment where Tom, and I was like, is there going to be a redemption? Is he going to, punch this guy in the face, lose out a potential CEO role because he actually does love his wife? But no, and whether he wanted to do that still is debatable. But he didn't. And he got offered the CEO role, which I think it's been well built to. I think for what the series has done, for their, the politics of it, they need someone that's like American, to impress that potential president who they imply, I think, is probably going to lose because they said there was the legal thing. And it doesn't matter what could happen post-Succession. The Succession world, there's loads of creative that could come out. But with Tom, it makes sense. And he said it, it's basically, I'll be the front man. You do everything behind the scenes, do what you need to do, I'll do it.
He's very happy once again being the lapdog behind, someone.
Because it's about status. And he's climbed those ranks. And it's interesting with Logan is, how did Logan create this media empire? How did it blow up? You're not going to be able to build something of that momentum without having done, not kiss-assing and doing that, but making difficult decisions to put yourself in that best position to sort of strike and move on. It's exactly what Tom was doing every single year. And, I love it. And him and Greg as well. Just, they are the kind, I know there's a lot of comedy in the series, but those, the fact that they're called the Disgusting Brothers now, the nickname, it's like they're in on, not the joke, but people enjoy their scenes with each other, and they just deliver. Every series they deliver. And even again,
wow,
even
Greg,
the finale.
kind of, as soon as he says, wow, Greg, exactly, there's going to be a great line coming afterwards,
And the fact of the matter is he's still stuck by Greg. Even after the betrayal, he's still stuck by Greg today, which I think's amazing.
As
and I think
Judas in the room. Should we
Right.
talk about Judas in the room?
Yeah, because I mean, Greg's tricky. So obviously, I'm not going to talk about the real life stuff that's come out. So it has kind of impacted how I've enjoyed the character. I'm not going to lie. A literal sense of him being a disgusting brother with Justin Theroux. Did make me affect Greg because I genuinely thought like not. I really like him, but just again, like separating, the actor. I really did think that Nicholas Braun was good. Yeah, it happens. You get yourself attached to actors. Greg in this series, season 4, I think he had the least to do of the 3 other seasons, which kept, I think, making me think, maybe others think, could he be the one? Could he go in? Could he swing? I didn't think he'd ever make it to CEO, but I thought there's going to be something big involving Greg. And had Kendall have won, I would have been so curious to see what Greg would have got out of that, because
he would have ended up like
his betrayal was
clearly.
that was like they were locked in to win Shiv's team. That 180, the whole thing, and just by him getting the Google Translate app on his phone at the bar, the fact that he's playing both sides for himself is probably why Tom's kept him, because Tom would have done the same thing if he was in Greg's shoes.
It's exactly what he taught him to do. It's play both sides and weigh up and see what comes out on top.
It's hard. I mean, and also the fact that Madsen calls him Judas as well is like he's in on it. But the fact even he's okay for Greg to remain employed, it does kind of make me interested that he's probably going to have a horrible future where he's always going to happy to be that assistant. That great line, like, you're the highest paid assistant in the world. They're going to cut you down to like 30K, but you'll be safe, knowing full well that they could do whatever they want with him. But he'll keep Greg as his lapdog for the foreseeable future.
Let's be real here. He'll probably be way more than 30K. They'll probably keep him up there just to keep Tom happy and stuff like that. But no, it's I find Greg's character hilarious, just for being that bumbling idiot kind of along for the ride. Everyone else seems to have a clue and he just seems to not. And it's really interesting that towards the end in the final series, not only does he fight back against Tom, which he didn't do previously, but he also, starts to do things on his own merit. He starts to think for himself, and you can see that he has developed his kind of skills within the company, and he could be seen as, someone who could do things in the future. I think it was the Living Plus episode where he's like, well, I want you to make that happen, kind of attitude, where he's starting to act like the Roys because he's been around the Roys for so long.
Yeah, and it does it amazing. Is it series 3 when we have? Oh God, I always forget the name of the actor. That's really bad. Who plays Logan's brother, James Cromwell. Absolute legend. Always incredible guest appearances. Always has a presence. Like any film he's been in, I've seen him in. The fact he's his dad, I love him in that early season. He goes, I've given your inheritance to Greenpeace already.
Yeah,
and that's really Greg's out on his own, and it's things like that made me think: is Greg going to make it to the end? Could he be the long game player, which I did think he would be? But he has survived, and I do think again, there's not much of a character there with him, but I don't think Greg needed to be a CEO type thing. I don't think Greg needed to have some insane big moment of pushing. I think today was perfect. He was the one that set everything in motion for the board vote, and I think we just had enough of him. Don't have much more to say on him. But as I said, he has definitely always been there more for that comic relief. Even going back to his first episode, when he's throwing up through the eyes of the puppet thing.
Yeah, exactly. Should we talk about our final character to go through, Madsen? Do you know what? It's really interesting because he is a Skarsgård. I'd say he's probably the least well-known Skarsgård now of all.
No. There's 8 of them.
There's 8 of them. Okay, I thought there was like 4.
I would say I really like Alexander Skarsgård. I think in terms of roles, Bill's probably the most well-known to the general public. I think in terms of acting and career, I'm not including the dad, by the way.
I was going to say, like, I would have gone straight to
Stellan, there's no Stellan's quite comfortably, at the top of everything. But I think 4 of them act, but there are 8 total. But a younger one's just come through called like Val or something, because it blew up on Twitter like a month ago that another Skarsgård basically popped up in a photo shoot, and everyone was like, "There's another one." But But Alexander Skarsgård, if anyone's seen him on red carpets, he's got a very unique personality. He's very different. I think he wants to turn it to a red carpet just wearing like boxes and a bow tie, nothing else. And he's very much in. And I think his casting in this, for them to have a rival businessman and it not be American and it not be another suit, to be one of these more, I don't say younger tech billionaires because I hate stuff like that, but the vibe of him, he's not wearing the expensive designer clothes when he's with them all. He is in his own thing. He is playing a game from the day we meet him through to the end, knowing he's got dodgy accounts as well. He's got dodgy stuff that can come out. He's got weird fetishes. He's got cases that could happen.
Yeah.
But he has played that long game well. And I think he is the perfect antagonist for the Roy family because look at Kendall. Everything's calculated. Look at Roman. There's a sense of not like madness or anything, but like with Roman, he still knows what he's doing, and he wants to be the one that's more outspoken. Whereas Madsen, he was almost the blend of the three of them, but as a rival businessman that wants to take away their empire. And I absolutely love him in this. At the start, it wasn't too sure. I know in season 3, we had Adrian Brody pop up for one episode as well, which was still really random but cool. It's one of those where the more we've seen of him, getting to the photo shoot at the end today, I think he was the perfect person to cast because the thing with the Succession cast, aside from, of course, Brian Cox, who, not to discredit his career, I don't think Brian Cox was ever a household name. Like, general audience. Still, obviously, a very well-known actor, incredible career. Same James Cromwell. They've always sort of responsibly cast people. There's no, as I said, Adrian Brody's probably the biggest cameo on paper. And most people will have known. I mean, I know he's an Oscar when he's been in so many things, but not everyone will know who Adrian Brody is. And I'm glad they just didn't go in getting these A-listers who everyone knows, who everyone's everything from, who's going to come in, play themselves. Skarsgård, I think, was the closest thing to them to getting that right, that you had someone who is known amongst those who watch their stuff or know the industry. And I think that's where Succession's always had its strength, is that you get the best out of the actors by the writing, by how they shoot scenes, not by the name of the person you're bringing in. It also gives other people like a way to shine their talent. And that's a really weird way to talk about him. But the whole, the Sweden dynamic with all of them lot coming in, it was really interesting.
I was going to say, even the trip to Sweden, that episode was fascinating because it not only did it give an unbelievable performance, by Kieran Culkin, where he's kind of just saying, I detest you. I really hate you. But no, Madsen's character is he comes across as so odd. It's like people aren't able to place him, people aren't able to pick up on him, and only a few people are able to, actually get under the skin. And even then, they don't win in the end when they come across him. He is the perfect villain for this series because he's kind of like a mystery box of a player. Everyone else wants to play it by the book, play it straight, or come in and backstab. And he's just kind of sauntering into the room, and he doesn't need to act like he owns it. He knows he's going to own it. He knows he's going to take over. He knows he's got various different plans up his sleeve, to do it. So,
no, absolutely. And he won, as we said earlier. He's one of the winners. Shiv did the deal for him. Hey, we'll get you in with the president. And it's what he said today. American politics is so much easier than I thought it would be. And I thought that's what's interesting, that his game was always getting in politically. He didn't really care about which president was going to be. Everyone made it easier for him.
Yeah.
And also, again, picking Tom, sensible decision. He's already on the inside, and it's worked in his favor. And that's kind of a nice way to round out us talking the lead. We know there's so many other characters in the show. It's an incredible ensemble, one of the best ensemble casts. Yeah. Even the board people get character arcs. But we're not going to dive into that. We'll talk about the music quickly. Nicholas Britell. 4 seasons. I, for one, and I'm not an expert on music, have never heard an approach to a series like this where the main theme is essentially the score to the entire show. I know that's a really simplified, pathetic way of approaching a soundtrack, but I've been listening to the season 4 soundtrack, all day today, and it is incredible, again, how good. And I think this series has been the best music out of all 4 seasons, but I think the music is as important to this show as the characters. It is the characters in its own right. Even when they have the tech upbeat stuff versus when they have the slower orchestral stuff, it's always that Succession theme being done in a different manner. And I just think However, I've not seen much from Nicholas Britell. I know that, of course, he's done since this a lot more. Andor's probably one of his other big ones with Star Wars, but his approach to how he's done the theme, how he's spoke about, how they watch episodes, how they have these ideas bouncing. It's really interesting, but I just think it has to be shouted out that you cannot think of this series and not think of the theme on the spot.
Exactly. Exactly. No, the theme is fantastic. And the fact that, it's interwoven into the actual kind of show so often, like you said, I've never seen a show that uses the theme that often for a show at all at any point. Like, you wouldn't tune into Game of Thrones and listen to the Game of Thrones theme being played halfway through an episode. They have various different themes thrown in there. Whereas this, it fits so well to have that Succession theme played on like just piano only or with violins or, anything like up tempo, which we had this series, which was really cool, like in different keys. It is the series. It's like the lifeblood of it. And I love the fact that it's the theme kind of sounds like someone falling from grace. It's like a rise at the start and then it drops all the way down, sinks, and then it rises again. And that's kind of the way the Roys kind of did their business. It's, all the way up and then all the way back down again. So, no, fantastic theme. And it worked throughout the entire series all the way through to the end. I'm going to miss listening to it on a weekly basis.
Yeah. As always, the best shows always have amazing themes. I don't know why, it just happens. You don't get great shows with terrible themes. It's just not a thing. Same for title sequences as well. But let's, as we sort of slowly start to round out, just talking this season, do you have a favourite episode and a moment we might have discussed? I know I said mine was the death of Logan, just in terms of TV. That 1 hour is one of the most insane hours of TV I've watched in a very long time. But I'd give a humongous shout out to the funeral last week, which was the perfect. I mean, this show just delivers. It delivers every single week, and you don't think it can get better, and it does. You don't think it can live up to something from a week or two ago, and it does. But the Kieran Culkin funeral moment is going to be, I think, the scene a lot of people go back to throughout the entire season. And a shout out to the four ladies of, I don't know what you call them. They're what, two mistresses, two ex-wives of Logan.
Widows.
The widows, yeah. That incredible like baller moment where they just go to the front, make the joke, just perfect. And I love the fact that Brian Cox's real life wife
was one of the widows.
She was one of the one. She was the first one who had the fling on, basically, which is a great cameo to get that in behind the scenes.
Yeah. For me, there's actually a few, and I won't pick the obvious ones from this series, but as far as my favorite scene from this series, I've got a comedic one and a serious one. My favorite comedic scene was the Wasabi LaCroix incident.
Yeah.
Which
did you see the write-up, by the way? When someone paused last week's episodes, when they have the TV magazine, someone wrote the entire events like it would be an actual magazine, like a news report, and it's on the screen for less than a second. And it actually mentioned the Wasabi incident on there as well.
Phenomenal. Just unbelievable. Just to break the tension of that episode, which was one of my favorite episodes of the series, with a scene where someone gets wasabi in their eye and Greg tries to wash it out with what is lemonade. Like, just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But my favorite scene, serious for the series, has to be the balcony scene. That's they acted the shit out of that balcony. That was brutal to watch. That was it made my skin crawl. It was horrifying just because it was pure hatred coming from both of them, and it was the end of a relationship. It was the end of that kind of that part of their lives, and they were willing to just get everything out there and really go for it. And it'd been building throughout that entire episode with, the scorpion gift and, the tail of the scorpion and the toad. And, Tom was absolutely right in what he said, and Shiv was absolutely right. Well, it was just, it was so well acted and so well played out. And I think that was one of my standout moments from this season.
No, I mean, and kind of running out season 4. As I said, we didn't do seasons 1 to 3 because we weren't watching them.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite moment from all 4 seasons?
Do I have a favorite moment from all 4 seasons?
I mean,
I have.
favorite moment, best moment. Think about. I can tell you what mine is,
I
and it's
mean,
something that I've never forgotten.
For me, just the simple line of the you didn't send. What was it? There wasn't 2 hours break between sending emails, which didn't have the tagline of "You can't make a Tomlet without breaking some Gregs." Just as one of the funniest comedic. I was laughing physically out loud at that scene. I love the whole deposition there in the court, just the grilling that they went under and everything like that. But apart from that, there have been some funny one-liners, there have been some funny scenes, but I really enjoyed, the scenes from Series 4. I think the scenes from Series 4 that I'd already mentioned, they up the ante. Towards the end, it got more insane, and I couldn't believe that it was getting more and more insane towards the end. If there was one scene from one of the earlier series that I really want to point out, it'd probably be the first board vote where I think it's in episode 4 or 5 where Ken gets voted out.
And he's late with the traffic.
Yeah, just the way that Brian Cox just shuts everyone down in that room, and he doesn't get there in time and gets shut. That's to me, that was my okay. This is a phenomenal series moment. Every single series has that moment where everyone goes, "Oh, this is the first big moment." I think Game of Thrones was the Golden Crown moment where I was like, "Oh shit!" Kind of like this is gruesome and horrific, and this was the gruesome, horrific moment that sold me on the series.
No, I'm with you. I'm kind of, again, it's a blur for me. I mean, the mirrors of the vote, by the way, is it the first time we go back to that boardroom today?
Just can I guess your favorite scene? Yeah. Is it Boar on the Floor?
It is. I still remember watching it for the first time, but like everyone else, right? You just think, oh, okay. And every time I rewatched that scene yesterday before the finale, you watch on station, it is one of actually the most harrowing scenes of the entire show. The power that Logan has in having these executives worth millions on the floor, on their knees, oinking for their sausages. It's scary and it's wonderful and it's hilarious still. But how every single character responds in that scene, reacts in different ways. Roman with the phone out, Ken thinking business-wise, forgetting there's all the biography stuff in the background. Boar on the Floor is not the epitome of the show, not the epitome of Logan Roy, but it is that corporate greed that we know happens that we've never seen and will never see unless you're there. And the one thing I was thinking about Jesse Armstrong, who's the showrunner, is some of the stuff that is in this show across these 4 seasons. He must have seen some stuff. He must have heard.
He must have some kind of inside information or
how far this show can go. It's gotta be more than I'm thinking of. There's got to be some real life stuff somewhere. I'm not talking easy things like it's the Murdochs, it's this, it's that, it's the Trump election. I'm talking specifics of stuff. I just can't believe it's not already, real. And it probably is to a point, but again, we won't know. And I think he's done. I mean, he did Peep Show, of course. I think he worked on. He might have done a political show. I might be wrong, but
he did. Not The Thick of It. He did
the Veep.
He did Veep. He's done a few series.
Yeah, right? Veep was basically the American version. But this is and Boar on the Floor is a scene I'm always going back to.
He was a writer. He was a writer on In the Thick of It. The Thick of It. So. That's where he got his kind of quick-witted humor, and that's, I guess, the character Malcolm Tucker and everything like that. And he also did, Peep, In the Loop, Mitchell and Webb, Four Lions. He wrote. He's done work on Black Mirror. Well. Yeah, Peep Show, Fresh Meat. He's had quite a good kind of comedic career. This is probably the most serious.
It's so British, and then you get the jump, and it's like Succession. Yeah, It's like Craig Mazin going from the superhero movie to Chernobyl and The Last of Us.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is full credit to him. But yeah, Boar on the Floor. I think Boar on the Floor is the one scene I'll show anyone that I want to see that get into the series, and their reaction dependent on that scene is going to play it. Because again, you get the fear of Logan. You get even like Tom on his knees begging, everyone else, Greg telling the truth, Jerry telling the truth. But obviously, Jerry, Greg still has to play the game, and it's just. that 5 minutes is perfect, and it's again great way to get into the show for people. But aside from that, in terms of like outright drama scenes, it's tricky because there's so many. But I kind of want to end it on talking about the final shots today. Kendall, the sunset to a point. I love the security guy that's still there working. Who's Logan said, you're my only real friend, which I've always loved that moment. But yeah, from all seriousness, it's hard to pinpoint a specific scene of like drama and whatnot because the show is rich for it. That every week there's something else, and the fact they can make things like board votes interesting, they can get tension off stuff like that, stuff that people don't care about. It's essentially dialogue the series, but how they shoot it, how they're on set, how they work, they do fast-paced filming as well. The cast are very quick in and out with how when they've spoken about process, but it is fascinating, and it is sort of heading into final thoughts. This is going to be right up there for the years that come. In the years that come by, when people are talking about, is it the best show ever? Blah blah blah. I'm never going to answer that question ever. Is it the best show ever? Not about this as a whole, but I think I said to you before we went live. Is this the best show since Breaking Bad? Because Breaking Bad's on paper is the current. This was the last, not great show. This was the last show that is up there in the echelons of TV. And people talk about The Sopranos, they talk about The Wire, we'll talk about
this will be up there with Sopranos and Wire. This will be up there with Breaking Bad. I think the fact that it didn't have, a long runoff or anything like that, no kind of fat,
and it's not commercially popular. It's something that, because it's 4 seasons, word of mouth has carried it, but it isn't a commercial series, right? People can't come in. I'm not talking about like Game of Thrones, but Breaking Bad, you could see the cultural phenomenon, long form storytelling as well, of course. The streaming era being one of the first big shows for binging, save Breaking Bad as well, let alone help launch Netflix. Succession is that prime HBO slot. This is prestige TV. And there's nothing wrong with saying it is that. And for people that are curious, and they won't be an hour and 10 minutes in if you were curious, it's just one of those where I can't wait to see more people watch this over the years. And I think this is going to sweep the Emmys later this year, like sweep them that they've not been done like for a while.
I feel like HBO in general are going to sweep most of the categories for the Emmys. Anyway, you've between this,
The Last of Us and this,
Last of Us, Barry, White Lotus, and also House of the Dragon, it's taking everything.
Yeah.
It is taking everything. Nothing's going to compete with them. Which is, I mean, I'm not going to complain about it. If one specific company manages to make, the best shows out there for a good run of time, why
decades at this point?
We're in a fantastic era of TV where the TV production value and the TV quality is matching, if not better, than a lot of films that are coming out. And there's so much more you can do with TV because it's over a longer period of time. Of course, cinema has the spectacle that goes with it, but TV can have the drama that's drawn out and, develop the characters over a longer period of time, really get into the nitty-gritty moments of it, get into the characters' little intricacies. And this show is all about that. You learn so many tiny little things about every single character throughout the entire series, and it all comes to a head at the very end. It all becomes relevant because you know the character at that point. You know how they're going to feel after the show's ended. You know what their kind of opinions are going into it. It's brilliantly put together. It's such a well put together series. I will continue to sing its praises, and I may give it a little bit of time before I do another rewatch, but when it comes around to it, I'm really going to thoroughly enjoy going through it again and just seeing if there's anything I missed, seeing if there's anything that I could have picked up on, seeing if
I think there'll be a lot.
Was it telegraphed from the start that Tom was always going to win? That's my question.
I'm in the same boat. I really want to rewatch it now, but I also don't. Also, not to go on a tangent, but I pay for Sky streaming, right? So we get everything.
Yeah.
I pay to skip adverts. They still put fucking adverts on. And I get it on a terrestrial broadcast. But they're on season 1 if I want to watch it on demand. I don't want to watch it with adverts. I know they're not listening.
Yeah. My friend also pays. No, my friend also pays. I go and made the same complaint.
And they're really crap. They're really crap at skipping. They do it on purpose. But I'm going to pick up the box set when it's done. And I know. And the one thing I'd say is, I've got a lot of people that would like this. Not all of them have tried it. But they've really got to get past the first few episodes. And not in the sense the first few episodes aren't good. It's not one of those series. It's the It's a very different show to what people are used to. And once they
Yeah.
get that board vote, they're in. But yeah, listen, that's going to round out our review. Succession season 4, Succession as a whole. As I said, we'll probably end up talking about it as the years go by, as we do with a lot of these great series. This one will be right up there for any TV discussions that do come. But we do want to hear from people at home. So if you're watching a little bit later, do comment below your thoughts on Succession. If you like the show, what you enjoyed about it, your thoughts on the finale. And if you do like this video, do hit the subscribe button. Obviously, there's not any more Succession videos coming because the show is over, it's finished. But if you do want to find out about other videos, other things, get us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook levels.com/cinema_savvy. Link to Redbubble in the description below. Now, tomorrow night, Mission Impossible review drops. That retrospective kickstarts. Ted Lasso finishes on Wednesday. There probably will be a Ted Lasso review, but I guess we'll say it's TBC right now. We've got a busy week. We have our own lives. We did a video yesterday, tonight, tomorrow. A lot of stuff happening. When there's a Ted Lasso review, we'll announce it on social media. Probably won't be as glowing as Succession, I'm not going to lie. But Ted Lasso is a lovable show. There's a lot
Ted Lasso is a fun watch. It's one where you can, some episodes you can kind of tune out your brain and you just kind of go with the waves of it. Whereas this show, Succession, you have to be tuned in at
right mindset. Yeah,
to get it.
Exactly. So when there is Ted Lasso stuff, we will let you know, and we will have a few people on for that one as well. But in the meantime, thank you all for watching. And as I said, we've got a lot of other stuff happening. Mission Impossible tomorrow, 8 p.m. BST. Every Tuesday, Mission Impossible reviews are happening. So do check that out as we do build up. Because, we like talking TV, but we are a film channel. Spider-Verse comes out this week. There's a lot of big films happening. Check out our summer blockbuster preview video. But aside from that, thank you for watching. And be sure to join us on the next one. Take care.